talking about SNL, the history, the mysteries, and all the hot impressions in between, breaking down all the numbers as well. In your favorite sketches with special guests, it's on the Saturday Night Network.
Yes, so welcome on in, everybody, to the Saturday Night Network for another edition of our Monday Night Roundtable, here to cover the John Mulaney and Chappell Roan episode of Saturday Night Live, Season 50, Episode 5, in a historic weekend at SNL. My name is John from the SNN. So excited to be with you on this Monday as a presentation of LateNighter.com and with some amazing guests here on the show and in the chat to break this one down even further. So first up, let me bring in the lovely Amanda Mitchell is here. Amanda, how are you?
I'm thrilled. I'm with my favorites. I can't wait. This is so exciting. So Monday, it's the night before the election. A great way to not think about that and just be chit-chatting with y'all, yapping. Excited. Yay!
Yeah, this will be fun. This will be a great time tonight. No, nothing to worry about. We're all here to just talk about our favorite comedy show. So it'll be a great time breaking this one down. Of course, love doing this with my man, Sammy Kay. Sammy's here. Sammy, how are you?
John, I'm doing great. I had a great weekend. I got to see SNL legends Steve Martin and Martin Short at the Fox Theater in Detroit.
Wow.
Such a fun show. But that got me in the spirit to talk about another SNL legend tonight, in John Mulaney. So very excited to break this all down.
Yeah, and as you texted me, Marty, they showed a clip of Marty doing some Nathan Thurm, one of our favorite SNL characters, you and I.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, it was great to get to
very
see that.
Exciting.
But happy that you experienced that show, and hopefully more people go out and see them on tour. I hear that they are fantastic. Joining us for the first time during our regular coverage of Season 50, it's a staple here to have her on the show throughout our years covering Saturday Night Live, and that is Rebecca North. Rebecca, how are you?
I'm so excited. I've obviously heard the new intro for Season 50, but I was taken aback before I had to speak, and I was like, whoa, it is so good, and I love the vibe, and we're matching. It's very the new monologue, so I love that, and I'm very excited to be here with like my Mount Rushmore Saturday Night Network podcasters. So this is going to be exciting, and we definitely won't talk about anything political. To keep our mind off and nothing relevant in this episode. So
yeah, no politics talk here for sure. Mount Rushmore SNN podcasters. That's interesting.
That's the best compliment I could have been given.
I do think I might get in trouble by saying that from some people, but
TJ is at home crying.
Yeah, so when I was thinking other people, it was TJ. But then that would be, you know what, he could replace me on my own Mount Rushmore because it would be a little weird to have myself. So TJ, shout out to you.
Well, I appreciate the compliment nonetheless. But yeah, let's get into this episode because there's so much to talk about from this week of SNL. I called it historic because I believe that this is one of those episodes that is a time capsule episode, one that people will reference 5, 10, 20 years down the road as a where were you when this episode occurred. It doesn't mean it is one of the greatest episodes in the history of the show. There was a lot of things that I definitely liked and really enjoyed throughout the night, so I'm excited to get into it. But I think based on the moment that occurred at the start of this episode, it will be one of the bigger moments in SNL history. So let's get into it. Let's talk about our cold open that we saw here this week. As always, for these first 5 episodes, we have been discussing the cold opens before we dive in to the rest of the show. So we do get Chloe opening up the show with a CNN Caitlin Collins intro, and Caitlin Collins herself was at the show. There's a great picture of Caitlin with Chloe Feynman online right now. And then she heads over to Donald Trump's last rally, where we get to see JJ playing Trump and having some fun with the impression. I'm excited to get into that a little bit. He introduces one last Bowen Yang as JD Vance, and then watching them on TV are Gaffigan, Andy, and Maya, are 3 cameos that have been a part of this thing for the first few episodes, as Walls, Emhoff, and Kamala talking and commenting. And then we get Dana Carvey coming in for Joe Biden. So we get basically all the things that we've seen over the last few episodes. They do all the beats of that, and it ends on this huge note, which had been announced a few hours prior, that Kamala Harris was going to be in the building. And we get another mirror gag that SNL has been doing over the years of Kamala meets Kamala, where Maya and Kamala get together and have some fun with each other, and then say live from New York together. So let's talk about the legacy of this moment that we saw here tonight. Or on Saturday night, there was a lot of ways, Amanda, that they could have handled Kamala coming to Saturday Night Live. Were you happy with what you saw for this cold open?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things about the cold open itself ran a little bit too long because we knew we were building to a certain point. And even when I rewatched it today, you can see where they had hidden Kamala behind a screen and like it was rising because you could see the light shift. I thought that was fascinating, but it's because everyone knew what they were doing. I love this motif of the mirror gag. I just think it's one of those ways of comedy where that always works, of just the person talking to another version of themselves through the mirror. I thought it was marvelous. I burst into tears personally, even though I knew it was coming, just because in general, I just think the sound engineers on this episode need a round of applause because you could hear everything. Like you could, there was not an issue with, you could hear the audience. I don't know if they turned up the mics, but the mics were on. And I was really thrilled about the way that they approached this and the way with the gag and all of this. They could have just brought her out and had her out in the first 30 seconds of the cold open and been like, yay, she's here, bye. But they really, at least when the news broke, we were all like, okay, how's this going to happen? And I'm glad that they left it for the last bit instead of rushing through something. And also I love wordplay. And Kamala, I went to school in Kalamazoo, so, I've just been, when she said Kamala Zoo, I screamed. So those are the things in life that I live for, is wordplay and sight gags and mirror gags, I guess.
Yeah, they did a lot of stuff like this.
Keep Kamala and carry on a lot.
So of course you'll get to see that on a mug and every t-shirt in America coming up. But Sammy, how did you feel about what we ended up getting with Kamala Harris on SNL?
Yeah, it's just one of those just magical moments. Like even though it was spoiled a couple hours before, which is just like, it's just the reality of like, the world we live in now, where things like this are just not going to be kept under wraps. I guess my version of that would be when Conan showed up 2 years ago. That was kept under wraps, and that was great. But this was, it was just such there was this glow to the entire thing that it just very felt like such a time and place thing. And I feel like a running conversation throughout these first couple episodes is how we're not giving Maya enough credit for the impression. And now that we're really seeing them face to face, it is, I think, one of the greatest political impressions in the show's history. And I think, being able to see them, do that back and forth really cemented that. It is one of those kind of full circle things that SNL does, where they, have a celebrity impression and they have the real person there. Really kind of, puts a bow on the whole thing. But no, I really enjoyed it. I just found it to be very just cute, and like, it'll be interesting to see how this kind of all ages well, because obviously, we've had political candidates, come on the show in the past and do their cameos, and then they don't win, and then we look back at those moments, we're like, oh, okay. But no, I think, in this time, in this place, I don't know, just really in the moment felt like such a thing that only SNL can really do and pull off. And I think they did pull this off.
I do have to wonder if this is the biggest political, it depends how you define biggest, but the biggest political cameo that they've ever had on the show. I know they've had two sitting presidents in Ford and Biden pre-record stuff for the show, but to get someone right before the election who has a very good chance at being elected. I'm aware John McCain came on the show pretty close to the election in 2008. But I think that, like, if I remember correctly, the election was really, really leaning the other way at that point. Whereas now, at least it seems that things are a lot closer and more tight. So, the actual sway on what this could do is a really fascinating conversation that I don't know that we can fully have here, but political pundits may look back at a moment like this about what, Trump or Kamala did on their final weekend before the presidential election. And this will be a major part of that discussion. So, Rebecca, how are you feeling about Kamala Harris's cameo on the show?
So let me set the scene. I am, as all the listeners know and the three of you know, chronically online, completely tapped in. I had one of my really good friends' engagement party. That's an early open bar. So I come home next morning. The first thing to cure me is turn on SNL. Have not looked at my phone.
Wow.
Somewhere in my apartment, sit down on the couch. This started the sketch. I was down so bad, and I was like, "Oh, this episode gonna suck." Like, it was not great. And then she came out, and I was floored. I had no clue what was happening. And this is Sunday morning, so like that's how out of it I was. Like, not on my phone, not anything. I had no clue. And in my like knowledge of the show, I thought it was very likely going into the season because it's a huge, huge season. SNL, I think more so than ever in the past few years, has taken a stance in a way that's caused problems. One of the candidates hates SNL on Twitter constantly. Like, there are all these things that I was like, oh, Kamala's going to come on, no question. Then because of the FCC saying that they couldn't have her on, I thought it was never going to happen. I was so shocked. It made my day. It cured me right up. Like, best hangover cure is a surprise cameo from Kamala on SNL. So to me, it was like, not only would it be major historically, I agree with you, John, completely, but I had no clue. And it really, I was shocked. So I probably had a small percentage of people that didn't know it was coming. And you know what? I should probably put my phone down more because I think more exciting things like this might happen for me.
Well, what's fascinating here, Rebecca, is that you are part of a small percentage of people who are chronically online, but still had no idea. Whereas I think there are, at least a few million people who watch the show who are not actively online, who are sitting at home and will have had that experience. So I'm sure for them, like most of us who are doing the show right now on YouTube, this will not apply to, but for those who just, watch it linearly, I'm sure that this was a great moment for them. And I do want to talk about, obviously, very big moment in terms of SNL history, but I want to talk about how this cold open sort of plays with these first 5 episodes, because, I'm under the impression, I'm not sure, exactly contract wise what was signed, but based on what I've heard from Andy Samberg on the Lonely Island podcast and Dana Carvey on his podcast, I believe that these people who were signed up for their cameos were signed up to do SNL for a few episodes. And over the summer, they signed contracts to say, hey, we're going to be there for the first 5 episodes of the season. And I got the feeling, could be wrong, but that, when you see on screen this weekend, Andy Samberg saying, goodbye and basically saying it was Doug and walks off, to me, that was a little bit of an indication that the contracts are over for Gaffigan and Andy and Dana, that they will, they may pop up, but they will not have to appear on every episode from here on out. So I would wonder if we're now closing the book after 5 episodes on what we've seen so far this season. And I'd like to talk about how we evaluate how SNL handled this, pre-election portion of the season with these political cold opens, given that the final note was actually bringing in Kamala in to close the chapter. So, Amanda, for you, are you happy with what we saw in terms of how SNL covered politics in the fall of 2024?
Okay. I just felt like I don't know how to explain this, but they tried to create a running through line storyline with them in the cold open that didn't quite work. But I don't know if that's just my interpretation of it, but it felt like every time all the 4 of them were on screen, I was being thrust into a tiny little sitcom that exists in in the SNL universe that was a weird, I don't know how I felt about it. It just felt like, okay, I enjoy seeing all of these people on my screen, but I didn't necessarily need it every week. And there wasn't a reason to really bring, and I hate to say this about Andy Samberg, but I'm like, I love Andy Samberg and Doug Emhoff. I don't need to see him every week. He wasn't up to anything every single week, So I felt like they relied on the fact they were like, well, we have them signed the contract, so we have to use them. But instead of really trying to use them in a way that's effective and would be long lasting, like this cold open is the one that I will remember of the 5 that they've done. And that's not saying great things. But yeah, I think I just have like really mixed feelings about it. But it's more like I felt like there was just a through line that didn't really work, and it was very bizarre.
Yeah, because I think you can trace the machinations of this all the way back to 2008 with Tina Fey as Sarah Palin, where that really clicked and just drove the country like into just hysteria, just to see how much these two people looked alike. And then we started to see, you know, cameos slowly pop up in that way. 2012 was a little bit more of a return to normalcy with, you know, Sudeikis and Taron Killam. And then in 2016, you're going to have, you know, or even prior to that, you're going to have like Larry David as Bernie, you'll have Alec Baldwin eventually come out as Trump. And that was a very big deal for a while. And it, you know, developed into, throughout the Trump administration, many different cameos coming in to play random people that would show up at the White House and then be gone after a couple of months. So in 2020, when we first, you know, started covering SNL, we get Jim Carrey as Joe Biden, who at the time we assumed was, you know, staying for some reason for the long haul. And it did turn out that he had just signed a contract to do this for a few episodes. And then, you know, the impression was going to get passed off to Alex Moffat very briefly. So to me, I thought that the lesson from the Jim Carrey Biden thing was going to be that, you know, we don't have to sign these people just for a few episodes.
Yeah, why?
Yeah,
like,
but yeah,
just so you can do it. Like, I literally forgot about Jim Carrey until you said it just this very moment.
Well, what's interesting here is that I think they quadrupled down on it and basically said, we're going to sign contracts with a bunch of people, have them do, you know, these first 5 episodes, and the cold opens for the first 25% of the season are literally going to feel like their own television show that is separate from the rest of season 50 of Saturday Night Live. So to me, it is, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, Sammy, but I think it's a fascinating thing that they're doing where they, you know, put their foot completely down on the pedal and being like, nope, this is what SNL does now when it comes to general election. How did you feel about it overall?
Yeah, I mean, I think overall, I'm with Amanda that it has been a mixed bag. I mean, if you go back to going back to seeing that first cold open, I was so excited to see all of this. And to me, it was kind of just like, this is what SNL 50 is going to look like. We're going to see, you know, people throughout all eras of the show, and you never know who's going to pop up every week. And that's not really what has happened so far. It's like, oh, you do know who's going to pop up every week. It's going to be these same 4 people every week. Sure, this week we got Pete Davidson, you know, for a short sketch. But as far as like that being an element onto SNL 50, it's, you know, it's not that surprising. And, you know, I think some of the stuff they've done has been more successful than others. Like I still really think that even though Dana's Biden is really like, it's the one thing, it's the catchphrases, it's the face, but it makes me laugh every time. I think he just has that ability to take that character and just milk it for everything it's got. And even if we get it in these small doses, like it's really working for me every time. I think the Andy Samberg Doug character is pretty developed, but again, don't need to see him every week. Like he is a supportive Jewish dad who might be, you know, married to, you know, the first female president. Like that is the character, and he totally nails it. But I think we have kind of lacked, because of all these cameos, you know, stuff on the other side of the aisle with our cast, with JJ's Trump, who we haven't talked about yet in this episode. I know some people have had issues with the impression, you know, before this episode this season. I think he's done an incredible job. You can tell he has been looking at what is happening with Trump and has changed his impression. And I think it really is amazing. And I think this episode was, you know, one of his best performances as Trump, and it was really great. And then
can I just pause there for a second, Sammy? Sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, but I did say on Saturday that I love what they did with this characterization of Trump this week. And to me, this was the best writing of James Austin Johnson's Trump that I've ever seen them do on the show, bar none. And I'm just going to play a couple sound clips here because it's a good point to get to it. But the turn on the character here, just listen.
Where the hell am I? This place reeks. I don't want to be here with you people. Come on.
Yeah. So that whole thing of like him dropping everything that he was doing and then admitting that he actually hates everybody was perfect. And he continues it with this moment.
I'm exhausted. I'm babbling. I'm doing crazy things with the microphone.
Like it was so good to me that they actually went there with him, where I feel like they've been refraining from doing that before. So that to me elevated this cold open significantly. Sorry, Sammy, let me just pass it back to you.
Yeah, no, I just think, we got to give, space to talk about that. So I'm glad you played those clips, because I think it's amazing. But because there's just not a ton of oxygen, and there's clearly contractual obligations to bring these people in every week. They did nothing with JD Vance. They did absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
And but Bowen Yang is arguably like the star of the show right now. So like I thought it was a surprising bold choice to bring him in, who when he first came on the scene, I'm like, I don't think they have quite gotten the character, but like, let's give it a few episodes. And then
I still think that they had somebody else they wanted, and they had Bowen as a little, like, as a placeholder that they needed for like one episode.
I mean,
Well,
and
because
then
Molly's not on the show.
yeah,
So
yeah,
right.
there's that too.
Yeah,
but it didn't make sense.
Yeah, no. So I just, to kind of bring it all home and let other people speak, just, it's a mixed bag, because, I just think because it really felt like the show had to do it, they weren't, necessarily in the position to, put forth the best, possible sketch they can do every week, because they had to bring these things in. I think they did find creative ways to weave, these characters in, like during the VP debate. Like, I'm glad we got to see them again, but I think overall it did feel contractually obligated, and I don't think that was necessarily a great feeling.
Rebecca, how are you feeling about these 5 cold opens as a whole, and how they decided to cover them in the fall?
I do think like we didn't need to have them. Like the Family Feud one, that's a stretch. Like having that was the biggest eye roll for me, because I'm like, okay, you're really running out of things to talk about now. So like we have to throw this in and repeat the same things that we've been saying for so long. And I don't know, this is season 50. I do, especially when it's such a saturated big cast, it would be nice to have people from the cast do the impressions instead of outsourcing. But I'm so glad you brought up Bowen. I'm Bowen apologist. But it is so bad. That is not a good impression. Like, that is tough. So maybe they went through it, and with all these other people being like, do we want to have someone here, or should we have someone do a really, really good job and make the news and do that for more of a stunt casting? I'm okay with it. We saw last season, they had people cameo, 7 different cameos in episodes. So like they clearly want to do that, and it gets attraction and it goes online. I think it was really, really nice to like have Dana Carvey, although not a good impression. I think it was good to have him like on the 50th season. I'm actually happy they did have all these people.
Take. Well, that's a very hot take. Yeah, I think the Biden impression is fantastic to me. But
okay, I don't like. I mean, like,
yeah.
I don't love it, but like
I don't love it.
Yeah,
I don't love it.
All right, well, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna have some fun here. Let's put our stamp on these. Okay, so for what it's worth, there's a good chance that Maya will play Kamala this coming weekend, and James Austin Johnson will play Trump. So I don't think those are over necessarily. But just to wrap a bow on these first 5 episodes, I'm gonna go through the impressions. Let's not spend too much time on this. Give me like a letter grade, like A, B, C, D, or F on every impression that we have here. So let's start with the Republican side. So for the fall, Bowen Yang's JD Vance. Amanda, how would you grade it?
A C. But that's
Okay.
not on Bowen, that's on the writing.
Sammy?
I was gonna say like a D. Like it's just nothing for me.
Rebecca?
I would say a D. Like, he did a better job than I could if I was in the show, but still, they couldn't find anyone. Clearly, they were throwing out contracts to people. Like, bring someone else in for that then.
Yeah, I'm giving it a D just because I think the idea of Bowen playing JD Vance is funny enough, but beyond that, it would be an F. So for me, like they gave
you just know it, like that. Yeah. The first time I thought, I was like, that is so funny that they did that. Yeah. But then it was like, okay, actually, like this is gonna go on for a long time now. Like we don't need it.
Okay, so James Austin Johnson's Trump, how are we rating that for the fall, Amanda?
It's still going to be an A. I think he's just stellar. I think he's great at what he does. Like, I mean, I'm biased because I love him, but, A.
Yeah, Sammy, I think I got to go A2 after what I saw this weekend with what they did with it. I know that a couple people have been like, yeah, it hasn't really been working. But to me, I feel like we've gotten less of it. And that was a good thing for this impression.
Yeah, I'm totally with you guys. A for me, it's it's one of those things where that's so good that you kind of just forget how good it is, and you don't acknowledge it as much as you should.
Rebecca?
I'm gonna say A-. I think just we've had so many years of having Trump impressions on the show that, like, I don't know, maybe it's like getting tired, or maybe it's just comparing to that. But he is really good. But it's just like the writing is probably what's lacking here.
Let's talk about Jim Gaffigan's Tim Walz. Anything you got there, Amanda? How would you grade it?
It's like a solid B. It feels just like Jim Gaffigan playing a Jim Gaffigan type, but Tim Walz is a Jim Gaffigan type, so it's not that big of a stretch,
Sammy?
I don't want to be mean about it. I think it's just fine. I again, kind of didn't really do much. A little one note, but I mean, he's the VP, so I'm gonna go with probably a C+. If we're doing pluses.
Rebecca?
I'm gonna go with a B. It's solid. Like, they also didn't have that much time and that much content of him, like, at this level to do it. So I think it's good.
Yeah, I'm going F on this one. Absolute failure. Sorry, but yeah, I don't know what this was. This gave me absolutely nothing. Nothing good. Nothing bad. Like, it was.
Wait, you're saying the specific episode though, or is it general?
No, on these last 5 episodes, there will be, with respect to Jim Gaffigan, who I'm sure will make a great SNL host and will be a footnote in when he comes back and hosts, that, oh yeah, do you remember when he played Tim Walz? Nobody will remember this in a few years. He will be the Tim Kaine in What's That Name coming up in a few years.
Hey.
Well, that's shit. He wasn't elected. Let's just, things could change.
Well, anyways, but all right, let's keep going with Andy Samberg as second gentleman Doug Emhoff. Amanda?
I mean, it's like it's a C+. It's just fine. Like, I think that we have gotten better out of Andy Samberg not doing that role on this season. I'm even good. It's like a C-, like, in that reason, because like Andy's non Doug Emhoff work has been stellar. That I can't really give it any applause or any oomph other than it's Andy Samberg doing an impression of a Jewish husband. It's not that big of a stretch. So, yeah, C-.
Okay, Sammy?
Yeah, I'm just biased. I've just been very happy to see him on screen. So, and I don't think I've ever seen a video of Doug Emhoff, so I can't say whether it's a good impression or not, but I'm giving a B+ for how I feel. Just has been nice to see him.
Sammy, that segues me so hard into what I'm about to say. I would say a C, sure. Why do they need to have a contract for someone to play Doug? They don't have a contract for someone to play Melania. Doug is not some character. If anything, Melania is more of a caricature of a person. Why do they need this? Like, I think it's weird. Just saying, it's been bothering me all season. Why do they need a contract just because it's, I don't know, a woman on the ballot? Her husband needs to have get the screen time. We're not having that. Like, Sam, you've never seen a video of him because there's not much to do a video of. Why do they need to have a 5-episode contract for him?
Well, yeah, I mean, I fair point taken. I do think getting Andy Samberg back on the show was wonderful. Like, this isn't a cast member like Fred Armisen or something, who we've seen practically every season since they left the show. And I love Fred, but it's just that Andy Samberg has like rarely come back to the show. I think that this was a really cool opportunity to get him in. And yeah, I don't know. For me, like, if Marty played this impression in season 46, I think if he couldn't get Marty because he's on tour with Steve and filming stuff, then like this was a fun way to go. So I don't know. I haven't thought about it that way. So it's a good point. But I think if they're gonna do something, Andy Samberg was a really solid pick for me. So I got to go at least B+ on this. I love some of the things that they did. Let's talk about Dana Carvey's Joe Biden for a second. So Amanda, for you, how are you feeling about the Carvey Biden impression?
I'm feeling like it's absolutely there. He absolutely did, like, attempted things. Okay. It's okay. It's like a solid. Like it's a C. It's a C for me. I know you guys love it. It's a C for me. Like it works in the voice. It doesn't work in the physicality, and
Okay.
it doesn't work in. I just feel like, and this is gonna not a read on Dana Carvey as a person. This is just Dana Carvey's sense of SNL comedy is of Dana Carvey's era of SNL comedy, and so seeing that literally his delivery is a little more ham-fisted than the ones we got surrounding him, especially Maya, who I feel like actually went from being a caricature to being a little more nuanced over the last 5 episodes. So I say that this is the most cartoony Biden, which I am like, I don't think I love, but that's just me. Yeah.
Okay. Sammy?
Yeah, I mean, I've loved it. I've been a big fan of it. I mean, if you think of all of the Bidens that have been on SNL, especially the last couple of years, I just think he kind of showed up in that first episode and like totally like destroyed all of them. Like in my mind, like I will never think besides Sudeikis as Biden, like this will be the next one I think of. I know some of them we only got for 1 or 2 episodes or whatever, but yeah, I mean, he killed it. I do feel like, you know, you got to go back to the whole contractual thing where it's like if we had just seen him 1 or 2 times, it's like wow, like that was amazing. Seeing it week after week maybe lessened it a smidge for me, but I think I got to give it an A-.
Rebecca?
In the premiere, loved it. After that, I didn't like it. I would give it a C. Like hair and makeup is so good on the show.
Yeah.
So, like let's say what it was.
It carries.
If you didn't have the hair and makeup, I don't think it would be considered a good impression from it.
No, but it's good
hair and
SNL
makeup-
impression.
No, I know, but SNL has good impressions. Like think
Yeah.
about like we're gonna talk about Maya. We talked about JJ. Like it's SNL has good impressions, so it's a good impression. Like
Biden is the RuPaul Snatch Game of Beyonce of impressions. Like nobody can do a really good Biden impression. It's just like everyone does Beyonce for Snatch Game and no one does it because Beyonce's impossible to impersonate. That Biden is almost kind of in itself like a little boring enough where it's like doing an impression is just going to be like, okay, what do you want? I think it's always going to be in the eye of the beholder what you want in a Biden impression, I think.
Yeah, I got to go
Sorry,
A here.
Rebecca.
For me, just the lore of having Dana Carvey back in the 50th season. There's not a lot of people from his generation that could still come back on the show, and to get him around for as many episodes as we would get him would be great. The whole thing with him, with the ice cream cone and putting it in Maya's face when she wasn't expecting it, like that type of stuff is what you get from like an absolute pro in live television. And let's be real, Dana Carvey to me is a top 5 cast member of all time, and he is so underappreciated. Just because
just because you like him and happy to see him doesn't mean his impression is good. We're rating the impression.
We're factor. Yeah, sure. Well, I think the impression is good enough, and I think it's a very SNL style impression where they just basically took a guy who has had many different arcs in his life, but now is seen from an SNL perspective as like the old man with the failing brain, and Dana played that really, really well to me. So for me, this was an absolute win and a great choice, and worked better than if Biden was still in the race and it was Dana Carvey versus James Austin Johnson, because what we ended up getting was more of Maya Rudolph as Kamala, which is the last one we'll give a letter grade to here that culminates in this moment we saw this weekend. So let's give that final grade here. Amanda. Matt, you're on mute, so I just want to make sure we hear you.
I was thinking about it.
What do you think?
Repeat the question one more time. What am I doing?
Just give me a letter grade for Kamala.
It's the same question.
I was listening. So I think, like I said, I think that her impression over time has become more and more nuanced. And like Rebecca said, this, especially in this episode, a round of applause to the hair and makeup people who the eyebrows the eyebrows especially were immaculate in terms of those were Kamala's eyebrows on Maya Rudolph's face. I don't know what they did, but it was magic. But I think that I'm going to give it a solid and like an A- because I think that she got the laugh down. She got everything just moved into place. I think that I will be sad if she doesn't come back and do it a few more times, but I think that she's done a really good setting stone of being basically told she had this job before we had been offered the job, assumed like we all assumed. And so when somebody is given an assumption, you have to live up to that assumption. And she lived up to that assumption, if that makes sense. Because in July, we were like, well, what's Maya Rudolph up to? Maya Rudolph was getting ready to do exactly what she did over the past 5 weeks. And I think that this is, amazing. And I can't wait to watch her Emmy nominate or Emmy acceptance speech for this. True.
Sammy?
Yeah, it's interesting because going into the season, when this was announced, I was like, okay, like I like obviously she, when she's done this impression in the past, I've always found it to be like an okay impression, and I really think it, like I said earlier, has become in my mind one of the best political impressions in the show's history. I think the improvement, since we first saw her in like season 45, I think. It went from just like, okay, this is someone that looks like the real person to like, this feels like the real person, especially when you get that side-by-side comparison. So I got to give it an A as well for this one.
Rebecca?
Yeah, I'm giving it an A. I think it's so good. I mean, we look at like Kate's Hillary impression and it's really, really good. Obviously they're not identical, but you still see it's Kate playing her. When they were standing side by side, besides the one moment where there's a good screen grab that I've been going around on Twitter, that's like Maya made a face that she can tell she's standing next to Kamala. That she finally like said in that like, oh my God, I can't believe she's right here. But besides that, it's perfect. Like it's grown. I wouldn't have said this in season 45. I wouldn't have said it's a perfect impression, but the nuances and obviously as Kamala's very, very like on TikTok and whatever, people are doing impressions and like still no one comes close to Maya and you don't see Maya in it at all. And I think that's really, really important. I think it's grown and it's stopped becoming such a caricature and like becoming like her. Like she was able to speak to herself in the mirror and like, I don't know. I thought it was awesome.
I agree. Look, I'm going to give this an A+, absolute A+. Great decision to go back to Maya as Kamala on this. And, truly, there's a couple of reasons why it's me. Number one is that, I'll go back to this line from this cold open.
You got this because you can do something your opponent cannot do. You can open doors.
And I think that is really important from an SNL perspective because, I know not everyone has the privilege to do this, but some people are so burnt out by politics that they get their political news from a show like Saturday Night Live or from late night talk shows because it's easier to just view the world through the lens of comedy. And that's how they cope with news and what's going on in the world. Maya's able to, bring messages through Kamala, and she may continue to do that throughout a potential Kamala administration. And I just think that the relationship there is so important for what we may get over the next few years. So to me, continuing that and SNL pushing that forward was so great. And the truth is that this is the definitive Kamala Harris impression. And I believe if you go back to all of the administrations over the last 30 years, there have been multiple people who have played the presidents over time. I don't know that Maya is going to do this for the next 4 years, but I think it will be really hard to find someone great to replace her to do this impression. But just think about it. How many Trumps have we seen on the show? We saw multiple Obamas on the show, multiple George Bushes, even though that Will Ferrell's was the one that was the really important one. He only did it for like a year into the guy's first term. Going back to Clinton, you had Daryl, you had Phil. It's just crazy. Well, there was a lot of George Bushes on the show, but George H.W. Bush is
no. I meant like who else could do Kamala.
Well,
Like,
that's what I'm saying, right? So
Like they'd have to cast for her.
they'd have to
they'd
cast
literally
somebody,
have
but
to.
you know, it
Mhm.
is pretty rare in SNL history for someone to come on and then play the sitting president right away. Obviously, James Austin Johnson did that, but it is pretty rare for SNL to do something like that. And Maya would have to want to step back from it. And I think that she is so proud and honored to have this moment that I don't think we're going to get that. So to me, like we're going back to 88 to 92 for, you know, an impression of somebody who's like, okay, this is the person. Dana Carvey did George Bush Sr. No one else was going to do that. I think Maya Rudolph has this Kamala impression. And if she does win this coming week, I think that we'll see a lot of Maya Rudolph over the next few years. And the truth is, based on what she's done this year, I'm perfectly okay with it. All right.
Liza Koshy, that's the other one. She did her for Halloween. Did a good job. I knew there was one other person.
And that one scared me. She looks so much like Kamala. It
She looks so
scared
much
me. I was
like
like,
her.
There are definitely other people that can do it, but
Mhm.
you know, based on SNL's importance, I think that this is locked in for Maya. So let's, this was, you know, the longest preamble we've ever had to get really into an episode on these roundtables. But again, this was a historic weekend at the show, so I hope you didn't mind bearing with us as we close the book on this first chapter of season 50 and the political and the general election stuff prior to it. So let's talk about John Mulaney here. John Mulaney was our host of this episode. He is obviously another big name in SNL history. For most people, a top 10 or 15 host of all time. Began as a writer, hosted 5 seasons in a row, culminated in a very epic episode that we covered here in season 47 that to me was one of the greatest nights of my SNL podcasting life, getting to see that episode, and then finally does return to the show here in season 50. So Amanda, when you saw that John Mulaney was coming back to host the show, what were your feelings?
I immediately went and I watched the Cupid Shuffle sketch with him and Ego, and I watched it 2 times because I was thrilled. I just love when John Mulaney shows up on the show, regardless of what you feel about his personal life and what he's been up to in the past few years. The man is talented. The man has stage presence, and he loves this show so much, so much. And I didn't love the monologue, honestly. I think he's had better and stronger monologues and pieces of work on this show, but I think in general you could tell that he put his, like, every single thing, if Lauren signs off the final act, but like John, every single thing had his little signature on it, every sketch this season or this episode, and I really enjoyed it. I also am really thrilled about his new chin. It looks amazing. Like, the chin is great. The Botox is Botoxing.
Sammy, were you excited to have Mulaney back in the building? Obviously, he is, you know, we don't have a lot of modern day hosts that host many times throughout a generation. And he is one of the only modern day hosts that has come back so many times. Were you excited for him here for his 6th time?
Yeah, I was super excited. I feel like I've talked about on this network how much I loved Everybody's in LA earlier this year, his Netflix show. You know, I've gotten the opportunity to see him live in the last year. I love John Mulaney, and I just love that. You know, you talk about how he's such a legendary host, and like we've covered 3 episodes of his on this podcast at this point, which is crazy. And he, you know, I wasn't there for the first Steve Martin episode. I wasn't alive. I wasn't there for the first Tom Hanks episode, but I was there for the first Mulaney episode. You know, I was 10 years into my SNL fandom at that point, and he has really become like that host for you know me as an SNL fan. Obviously came later in my run as a fan, but you know, to host 6 times, you know, this far into the show's history, I think is incredible. The fact that he played such a big part, you know, in the writer's room during like my era of the show, you know, when I first started watching, you know, obviously, you know, means a lot to me. And I think you just get like even if some of his episodes aren't as, you know, great as, you know, others, I will never be mad or you know, say like, oh, like, you know, he just hosted last season, like we don't need him again. Like I'm perfectly fine. I'd rather have an average Mulaney episode, you know, than, you know, other episodes in a given season. Like his floor is much higher than a lot of people's ceilings.
I totally agree with that. His floor is very high. And, you know, for me, I said I had him when we did our host countdown at 11, like right outside my top 10. I think after this episode, I'm going to put him in my top 10. My top 10 right now, Steve Martin, Alec Baldwin, Tom Hanks, Buck Henry, Christopher Walken, Justin Timberlake, John Goodman, Melissa McCarthy, Will Ferrell, and then I had Scarlett Johansson. I think I got to move Mulaney into my top 10 after this episode. It wasn't an all-time classic episode for me. We're going to get into some of the sketches momentarily, but I think this was, like you said, from a floor perspective, a really good episode of SNL. I don't think Mulaney's had an absolute dud. His season 46 episode was obviously hampered because of COVID, so you have to put an asterisk on that one. But for me, this was a very good episode of the show, and he bumps up everything because he has such an influence on the writing of these shows. Rebecca, were you excited to see him come back?
Well, first of all, as the person that was on the episode with you talking about Scarlett Johansson being a top host, and I didn't agree with your love for her, I am satisfied that she's been bumped down from it. But I was so happy to see John. Honestly, I forgot he was the host. Like, he was just in it. Like, I literally completely forgot. Like, in my mind, I was just like watching SNL do its thing on its own. So, I mean, he always does it. He's so comfortable there too, and I think that's what really stands out. Is like, yes, he's a heavy end in the writers' room, but for someone that is not a sketch actor at trade, like, yeah, the monologue wasn't as strong as some of his others. I mean, I feel like I also consume a lot of John Mulaney stand-up, so my bar for him is really high. The monologue didn't like quite do that for me, but also I don't always love stand-up as a monologue on the show unless you absolutely like knock it out of the park. So that's fine. I didn't have like high expectations for that per se, but like, yeah, he's just so comfortable and you get the vibe. Also, yeah, he's never looked better too. So that didn't hurt the episode.
I agree. I mean, I think that it must be a great feeling for everyone in the building, knowing that John Mulaney is going to come in. He's probably going to actually have some ideas about what he wants to put in the episode. He's going to put his writing influence on things. And then he brings in a guy like Simon Rich, who is, his writing partner and is able to come in and help with stuff. So for everyone who works there, like, this is probably, they'll never say any SNL week is easy, but this has to be one of the easier weeks, knowing what you're going to get with Mulaney. So let's talk about some of the sketches that we saw from John on this episode. And Amanda, I will start with you. What is the first sketch you want us to get into?
I am going to talk about what's that name, which is the first sketch of the night after the cold open and the monologue, which was, we talk a lot on this podcast about game show sketches and how when they work and they don't work. And I know they've done this format before. They did it with Bill Hader before, I believe. And everything about this sketch was such perfect timing with the election, with everything, with the tenor of the room itself. I thought about this sketch the next day. I thought about it 2 days later. I talked about it with my mom this morning. Like, I also think, like, we never discuss Michael Longfellow as, we always wonder like where his footing is going to be. The man needs to play a sociopathic game show host more often. The man is a maniac. How he is dead in the eyes genuinely frightens me, like a Kyle MacLachlan-esque kind of way. But this was wonderful. And also when Tim Kaine came on screen, I went out loud, Tim Kaine, which means that this sketch was not about me, and I felt really good about myself. I would have won a lot of money.
Yeah, this was absolutely fantastic to me. So we'll take it in stages, and we'll go to Sammy and Rebecca for their thoughts on it. I mean, as a concept here, I love, chef's kiss to the SNL producers for placing this right after the monologue. It was so close to all of the people online who were like, fuck SNL for having Kamala Harris on the show. They never go after the left. And then all of a sudden, in that first sketch after the monologue, they rip all of the people who are so self-righteous, and they basically have this back and forth.
This is the most important election in American history. Mm-hmm. Democracy is on the line.
And then we get, this moment where Tim does come out and he says this.
You said it was the most important election in American history, and that democracy was on the line. It's been less than 8 years. What's my name?
So, just shoving in the face of a lot of people. So, Amanda, you may not have fallen into the category of, the Mulaney types, but I saw so many comments on social media of people being like, oh no, they got me. Like that was me.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
that, that's how a sketch really works, when there's so
Yeah.
many people out there who just
This isn't
admit it that they were those people. So Sammy, your thoughts?
Yeah, I was so happy with this. Obviously, Michael Longfellow is my guy. Had him on my fantasy team in his first season on the show, so always rooting for him to get stuff on. And he had big shoes to fill, because Bill Hader is like the quintessential SNL talk show host, and obviously he was in the original two What's That Name sketches, and I think he did a great job. Like I don't think he's definitely playing like kind of that character again, but I really do feel like he was able to put a bit of his own spin on it without like completely doing something totally different. So I thought that was great. I thought this was one of Mulaney's best performances of the night, as far as playing that resistance, super online, like liberal type, like absolutely nailed that. And I know this isn't the hot take show, but I do have a hot take here. I truly think the Tim Kaine performance might be one of the best, or at least one of my favorite performances from a politician on SNL
I
that
wouldn't
I've
disagree.
ever seen. Like, he has comedic timing. Like this could have been like a total wet blanket. Like the concept itself, like, is great, but like if you get somebody else who is not an actor, has no experience like performing in front of a live studio audience, and this sketch maybe doesn't work as well, but I think he nailed his delivery on the lines throughout this entire sketch. There's one point where he like kind of says like I exist, like the delivery of that was just, I thought it was amazing. Like, let's get him an Emmy guest nomination. But no, I really thought this.
Let's
worked on
elect
all
him
levels for me.
tomorrow. He's up for
Yes.
re-election tomorrow. Let's elect him
Yes.
tomorrow.
Everyone
Give him a
write him
gift.
in. Don't
Let
do
me play
that.
that line. That line was fantastic.
My name is still Tim. I exist. I'm a senator representing Virginia.
Of course you are.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Of course you are.
Of course you are. Of course you are. And then he gives that like evil face to the camera. It is a pretty good take, I would say. I think that when we're evaluating politicians that have good comedic timing and have been a big part of SNL history, I do think you have to compare him to some of them who have hosted the show previously, including like Al Gore, who was a really good SNL host back in the day, and even Giuliani, like a long time ago, with his post 9/11 cold open, which is one of the most epic moments in the history of the show. Can we be funny? Why start now? That whole thing. Like, I think that there are certain moments that politicians have had on the show. This was a really, really strong one. Rebecca, your thoughts on What's That Name?
So I didn't know Kamala was there, but I did see that Tim Kaine was there. And because I follow Saturday Night Network on Twitter, and that picture came up, and I was like, what? Where? How is he coming on to the show? Like, obviously happy to see him, but I was so confused, like how they could possibly make that happen. So I was really excited. Also, I didn't realize how much he looks like Tim Waltz, and like, talk about it. Like, let's get him a contract for it. Like, I'm here for him. He has great comedic timing, and they look so much alike. But I love the whole sketch itself, and I liked like the different notes completely. It could have gotten redundant, because when you hit what I would have deemed to be, from when I'm first watching it, when you hit something so high and funny, I always get scared being like, oh, so it's not going to go anywhere after this, because they got the laughs already. Why build up? And then the next beat being like the say their names, and then last but and a really big turn of events, Margaret Atwood. Like, I had no clue. Like, also they panned to her, like Sarah before, and I was like, wait, why is there an old lady here? Like, as part of the show. And I think it was just really, really well done. This is definitely my standout of the night too. Like, it was really funny, and there was no part where it just didn't keep building and building and hitting. So I think they did a really good job, and it was good political content. It's not always, and this was really good political content.
It was great. And John and Eric in the chat point out John McCain also was a great SNL host. I just rewatched that episode, but yeah, that was a fun one. Look, I want to talk just very briefly about this Michael Longfellow, Bill Hader thing. To me, I was totally okay with this. I know it's not everybody's like, it's not what everybody wants to have somebody who sort of falls in the archetype of a previous era's cast member, and then they see it play out, and then they're like, oh, but you're not that person. But I feel like it was just like an ode to one of his SNL heroes. And I don't think, they didn't give him the same name. Like, I think that in our like SNL superfan world, like that would have really bothered us if he was playing Vince Blight, but he wasn't. He was playing a different host. I think, it would have been cool in the sketch if they said like, oh, Vince Blight's out sick tonight, so here's his replacement, Rick Blake. And like, that would have been kind of cool. But I saw that Michael Longfellow like posted the sketch on social media, and he, shouted out Bill Hader, and he said like, thanks to Bill Hader for letting me, play a, Vince Blight type. And I thought he did a really, really good job with this. Again, Bill is one of the greatest to ever do it because he can morph into so many different types of people. He can nail the impressions. He can do the characters. His voice can change like crazy. We don't know what Michael Longfellow will end up being on the show, but he's shown to have like a really amazing, dry wit and sense of humor, and also have this in his back pocket, which is like a really sort of evil talk show host that he did last year with Question Quest. So it's not like this absolutely came out of nowhere where we're going to try and put somebody in a role that doesn't fit for them. He is the right role in this cast to do something like this. And I don't believe that the sketch works as well if you casted anyone else in this sketch, barring getting Bill Hader. So for me, like, I have absolutely no problem with this, and I'm happy for Longfellow that he got to do this. So overall, huge win for the show that this got on this week. And I actually saw Elon Musk, who, we know how he thinks politically, but he said something on X, which was that he didn't obviously love what happened in the cold open, but this sketch was really funny. And he posted the What's That Name sketch. So it goes to show you how important it was that aired in this episode. Sammy, let's head over to you for the sketch you want us to get into.
Really quickly, where did Elon rank in the greatest host of all time countdown?
I didn't count negative numbers, so that was
sweet.
Really,
all right,
yeah.
Just glad we got that one on the record. So the sketch that I want to talk about tonight, which I was surprised to see wasn't just like universally loved. So I'm very curious to see what other people think about on this panel tonight. But I want to talk about Beppo. This is our second SNL Midnight Matinee, which I love as just a concept, and that we're pretty much getting them like right around midnight. Like, I think that's just a cool way to produce the show that way. And I really enjoyed this. These like so far 2 for 2 as far as the last one they did in the Ariana Grande episode, and this one. I love that these sketches they're big on world building. They have such an emphasis on like real filmmaking. Like, this really felt like, you are emotionally invested in Beppo's journey. And I saw some people sort of critiquing that, maybe the sketch was too sad or kind of, struck the, your sort of heartstrings too much. But I laughed a lot throughout the sketch. The design of the Beppo puppet, to me, just like the dumb like face on Beppo, like I'm laughing just thinking about it now. I think it is just a great design. Just putting him in this situation where the tone of it is so serious, but they're all taking this situation so seriously, even though it's at first very silly and then really dark. And yeah, I really thought this worked for me. I'd say like a couple critiques maybe. Like I think there were like a couple beats here that like if they really like fine tuned it, and especially like kind of like where the place this ends, I really thought this could have been like close to a classic as far as pre-tapes go. I don't think ending it on the Sarah kiss is like necessarily the best place to take this, but yeah, I overall really enjoyed it and found just Mulaney like describing to Beppo like how to navigate the ship and do all this stuff to like get home, and like he just has that dumb face on him the entire time. It just made me laugh. So I got a lot of laughs out of this, and the sort of emotion to it as well. So I really enjoyed this pre-tape.
This was so fascinating to me. Probably one of the most polarizing sketches I think we've ever covered here, because there's people who are in love with it and say this is exactly what SNL should be. They should, mess with our emotions, but at the same time find the comedic lens. And there's other people that are like, well, if a sketch isn't funny or not trying to be funny, why is it on Saturday Night Live? And I love that. Like that, this is what the show should be. The show should be, making you think about all these things and having these discussions. So Rebecca, where did you land on Beppo?
So I didn't like it at all. Like, this is my least favorite part of the night. Like, first of all, it didn't like, maybe I'm just not that emotional. If you're going to want to tug at my heartstrings, make me sad and then make me laugh. I wasn't that emotional. Yeah, but like still, I wasn't going to get a heart. Also, looking at the puppet itself, it was really hard to look at that and be like, oh, I feel for you. I'm like, it was so creepy to me that I was like, I don't care what happens to this thing. Like, get it off my screen. Didn't like it. I thought Mulaney was good in it. I think like he was my standout of the sketch. I think he did a really good job. And like, it is as a sketch actor, it's really difficult to like take something seriously when you know what's going to happen next. So I commend him for that. I think that's like really, really difficult. There's acting, and then there's when there's going to be like a punchline and all this stuff. I think he did a really strong job in it. But like, I don't think any fine tuning would make this a classic. I was so shocked. Like, I know you were excited to talk about it, Sammy, and I was just like, huh.
Does this come down to the fact that you just don't find Beppo cute? Like, if it was like a really cute dog or like a cute, like it was like a puppy, like, are you feeling differently about this?
No, I don't think that would have helped too much. I don't know. I also like.
You're telling me he's not cute?
Yeah. No, and then I hated that they used him as a bumper. I was like, can we get this thing off of the screen?
Oh, you're horrible.
Maybe if there was a backstory where like I got to really know Beppo. But like, no.
You're saying you want a Beppo full feature, like a full 90-minute.
That's the next SNL movie, Beppo.
Sure, I'll watch it.
Yeah, you hear that, people? If you want to get Rebecca's love and attention, you got to work for it. I mean, this is an interesting take. I actually have not heard that take, that Beppo's not cute, because I think that everyone collectively felt like Beppo was cute, but the sketch itself was the thing to break down here. But
no, like I watched it in like a very tired state, and then I rewatched it today, and I was like, no, I still didn't like this one. Like, I honestly fast forwarded through the sketch. Like,
okay, well, I disagree. Yeah, I mean, I think there was things on the show that I preferred, but I do find this a really fascinating sketch to get into. Amanda, I do want to get your take on this. Did you find Beppo cute?
Okay, yes, I found Beppo adorable. First of all, I thought, wow, Beppo was adorable. But yeah, here's the thing. Okay,
saving us.
So I'm gonna do a horrible thing and compare Beppo to my husband, Paddington Bear. As you know, Paddington 3, Paddington Peru. Yes, Paddington Peru comes out in January. So I need to give advertising to my husband, Paddington Bear. We love him. That's a man with a 90-minute full feature. He got 2 of them. A third, it's coming out. But the thing is, the why Paddington works is that Paddington gets into dilemmas, life-altering dilemmas, like Beppo did. But Paddington, they take him fully seriously, whereas here, they didn't take Beppo's plight seriously enough. They turned on Beppo as soon as it seemed like he was getting out of his dilemma. And I did not like that. It did not sit right in my spirit. And that's what made it not bad, but a hard viewing. Like, because I was like, I was genuinely concerned. Like, you can't give me something cute and then put it in danger and expect me to tee-hee-hee. I'm not going to tee-hee-hee. I might ha, but I'm not having a tee-hee-hee over here. And so I feel like Beppo's plight would, yes, make for a really good long film, because I need to But you just told me I am dangling your child over a ledge that you just met 30 seconds ago.
Is it a cute child?
Laugh
though?
at it. Yeah. You know, it's like one of my, you know, it's like my squishmallow over here. Like, come here. Like one of those. I do think that everyone did their best. I did love the Hidden Figures motif with Ego coming in at the end. I do have to point that out. I thought that needed a little bit more of a moment because the people who got it really got it. But I thought this was just a fine sketch, but comparing it to the other Midnight Matinee with Ariana Grande, which was one of my favorite sketches of the entire season so far, this was just a little too, the tone was, I wish that, I hate to say it, I'm going to agree. If Beppo was a little less cute, I think I would feel differently about it. But because Beppo was so adorable, I was like, I can't laugh at the fact that this adorable thing almost died. I can't. It hurts my soul. You know, it's like when Pesto, the giant penguin, started losing its fur. Like I was like, I don't want you to grow up. You're a baby. So yeah.
We'll have to dive into your Paddington thing another time, though.
I'm the CEO of Paddington. It's on my Instagram.
Well, so I think that the thing here is that the sketch, despite Rebecca's feelings about him, the sketch is trying to get you to root for Beppo. So you're on the side of Beppo. Yes, okay. For those watching visually, we got some Paddington content from Amanda, but yeah, you're supposed to be rooting for Beppo, and then you're like, okay, we want Beppo to come back to the station, so you're just like hoping that he does in the end. And I think that the comedy is mined in like some of the lines that Mulaney was saying with the
Beppo, I don't know if you have a god, maybe like King Kong or something.
And I think that what the sketch is trying to do is make us all realize how stupid it is that we are all so emotional about this little monkey coming back. Like, it's almost like they're like, I think Dan Bula was trying to play with the audience's emotions in the sketch, in that like it's making everyone be like, oh no, like we feel so bad about Beppo. And then how stupid is it that we feel so bad about Beppo? So they undercut all, like they basically like throw in lines there to be like, oh yeah, you guys are really silly for this whole thing. And they make the whole thing very silly at the end that, Beppo's going to come and Beppo's going to be.
Beppo was a communist spy.
And he's trying to like justify why we shouldn't be rooting for Beppo and all that stuff. So I think on the second watch, I totally, like on the first watch, talking about this on Saturday night, I had a really hard time figuring out what it is that they were going for here. But like, I finally understood like it was a tightrope that they were trying to like have us like struggle with the emotion of like, should we all want Beppo to be safe? But at the same time, you guys are all so dumb for wanting Beppo to be safe. And I think that really, really worked here for me. Did I like this as much as the other matinee? Not as much, but I thought this was a really fun and very unique SNL segment for this time in SNL history, for them to play something so emotional for so long in a sketch like this. So I'm fascinated by this one.
I think I like had a hunch that he was a communist spy, and I just couldn't see past it.
That's what it was for you.
You just didn't trust Beppo.
No,
Rebecca didn't. She said he's not cute and he's not trustworthy. Wow, I get it.
Did you find Marcel on Friends cute? That little monkey?
No.
Okay. Yeah.
Must be
maybe I'm anti-monkey.
Yeah, I think you're anti-monkey.
We uncovered.
Here's the thing. I recently discovered that Clifford the Big Red Dog takes place in Brooklyn. You're telling me an 8-foot dog, a 10 to 8-foot dog lives in an apartment my size? No, that's animal cruelty.
Gentrification.
Why would you do in Prospect Park? No, you can't fit a giant red dog. A red dog. That's no. And Marcel was the same thing. You couldn't keep a monkey in an apartment in New York. People have tried, but you couldn't do it. I'm just thinking about the realism here. I'm playing with the realism.
The monkey just ran across the background.
Yeah, if you had a monkey this whole time, that would be a great SNL.
You just didn't think Beppo was as cute as your own monkey.
Yeah, exactly. That's all it was. Yeah. Also, like, I'm a huge animal lover, so for me, like, just I was a wreck watching this one, and I love that I was, because like SNL doesn't usually bring these emotions to me, so it was good. All right, let's talk about the Port Authority Dwayne Reed musical, Rebecca, and I'm gonna put in a vote with the SNL community that Port Authority Dwayne Reed is not a good name for this 6th Mulaney musical. We should be calling this one Bus Milk. That is my vote for that one. So, Rebecca, what would you like to say about this sketch that you saw?
I mean, Mulaney hosts, what can we expect? We expect a musical. And I think obviously nothing will compare to Diner Lobster. That is my all-time favorite. Maybe I do actually have an emotional attachment to this one because my office is directly across from Port Authority in Times Square. And I've been to the Dwayne Reed there, and I have
also been to the
many
Dwayne
things
Reed
there.
Mhm.
And every time I buy a protein bar, I look at it and it's a little crusty and dusty, and I say, well, it's cheaper than
Everything you
anything else
buy is
around here.
covered in a layer of just debris. Like you don't just
So
ominous debris.
I have a really, really emotional attachment. Another reason Diner Lobster, I only eat fish. Like I every time I go to the Margaritaville in Times Square, which once a month I get
Every
shrimp
time?
there. Like, yes, like I do things like this. Like I'm the gross person that does things like this. And if I needed to buy milk and I was in the office, I would buy it from that place. And I thought it was really great. I love when you do have such a big cast and you really get to just like utilize people in it, even if it's for a second, even if it's for not. And all of these musicals always get really, really random. I don't know if I would have loved it as much as I did if they didn't have the Timothy Chalamet do the cabaret scene. Because in New York last weekend, there was the Timothy Chalamet lookalike competition. Took the internet by storm. It was so good. And they just do reference things that they wouldn't in other parts. It's why like Weekend Update works. They bring up something really, really niche and random. And if you can make it funny, then it works. And for people that don't know about it, they're still going to laugh at the Chalamet cabaret. And like thinking back to all of these things, like we're still talking about election stuff. I'm glad we got to bring up RFK's bear again. See Andy Samberg. Really happy to see Pete. I mean, we're talking about like gross New York stuff. It's fitting. Like it's perfect. I really think it was good. It's not my favorite. It's probably top 3. He's done it, 6 times? I think it's probably my top 3 though. I think it was good. Maybe it's because we had some time off before seeing another one and like they got to really be thinking, but I loved it. I thought there were a lot of funny things and they didn't harp on too many references that much. They did a good job of like the funny parts giving time to, the parts that would be like, moving away from right after. So I think it was a really strong one.
Yeah, this was fun. I mean, look, it reminds me of some of the other like 6-time hosts where we get to see, or 6 or more, where we get to see something musical from them in like Elliot Gould and Christopher Walken always did musical monologues whenever they're on the show. So like this was something that was expected. I was happy to see Pete Davidson. Did you guys know that this blew my mind. I don't know why, but you know, Pete Davidson has only made 1 cameo on the show since he left, besides the time he hosted. And that was this episode. Like I just, in my mind, I thought that he'd been on the show like a bunch of times since he left, but he
didn't leave that long ago though.
They also talk about him a lot. Too.
What? Yeah, they talk about it all the time.
He's referenced.
He
crazy.
lives in the attic in the tunnel above Studio 8H, you know.
I just like I was like looking at this. I was like, okay, I'm writing down. Okay, Pete's I'm like his first cameo. I was like, what? It's so weird to me. But yeah, no, this was cool to get him back. Obviously, he was in all the original musicals. He was one of the guys that ended up going to talk to Mulaney. So we do get to me, so the musical stuff was really fun. Some of my favorite lines though was the back and forth between Mulaney and Pete here.
You want the milk? Then it shall be yours, just as the prophecy foretold.
And there's a point right in the middle of the sketch where they completely break character and go,
here you go, Pete. Here's your bus milk. Thanks, John.
It was my favorite line of this whole thing. But yeah, I mean, again, huge props to everybody at SNL for getting to put these things on the air. Amanda, did it work for you though, the 6th edition of Mulaney Musical?
I mean, like, I'm a musical nerd, and in general, like, I love a musical motif. I did love this. I think it worked really, really well. There are things that I'm actually shocked they didn't do. Like, I'm shocked there wasn't a woman in a silk black dress covered in blood, like Nicole Scherzinger in Sunset Boulevard. Like one of these like topical visual references that like reminds you that this takes place in New York, because was
John and Sammy have no clue what you're talking about there.
Don't worry about
that
it.
would not have worked. It works for us.
It works for us because we live in New York. But like Timothy Chalamet and the Timothy like that was a real thing. But like there are little things that were so. I'd love when SNL reminds us it takes place in New York, and there's certain things that only happen in the city. And like Timothy Chalamet lookalike contest is a sentence you could only say in full jest in New York City. You cannot say that in any other city in America.
I honestly thought, I'm shocked he didn't come out for it, because the whole thing is that he came for the lookalike contest.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And I feel like they would have used that. Also, 2 criticisms is, first of all, why were there possums? Why weren't they rats? Like, I know they've done the rats, but like,
because possums can produce.
I guess.
Yeah, like I'm guessing they were actually being biologically milk.
Can rats not?
Like, I don't think rats have mammary glands, and I believe possums do. Don't ask me why I know this.
How do the baby?
Someone fact check right now.
How do the baby rats get milk then?
Sammy, they eat pizza off the streets.
Yeah,
I don't live in
other
New York.
nutrients. You have other nutrients.
Also, I was upset Chappell was not in this.
Possums.
Wait, Rebecca, your point is not important right now. Let's talk about this milk thing. So,
possums have mammary glands. Yes, possums have 13 mammary glands, 6 pairs, and a solo remainder. So that's
not
probably
what
why.
you should be looking up if rats do, because
yes, they do.
Okay.
They do.
Well,
okay. Yeah. So there you go. Maybe your point, you do have a point, but I feel like a possum is just a physical. Well, I'm guessing they probably Googled which one was better, and possums have 13 mammary glands and rats have 6. So what is the
mammary glands? Is it one mammary gland per nipple, or is there multiple? Like, how does it? Yeah.
So it's one per nipple.
One per nipple.
So they have
13 nipples.
Wow.
Okay, so they basically
we need sex ed Vincent. We need him.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
So I'm guessing for the visual gag, they said let's go with a possum because
with more.
I don't know more nipples, but I doubt that anyone at Saturday Night Live has spent as much time as we have discussing that exact topic.
You're just shaming rats for having smaller boobs than.
And what about it? Hey, you got tickle bitties over there? I'm gonna pick the one with tickle bitties.
This is body shaming. That it's a preference. Sizes.
Yes, I'm body shaming a rat. I'm body shaming a rat.
Yeah, number of boobs.
Too much animal abuse here between Beppo the monkey and the rats tonight. So, Rebecca,
possums.
Amanda has a crush on Amanda has a crush on Paddington. She can't talk animal boobs. I think she's the problem here.
All right, you were saying something about Chappell Roan, Rebecca.
Yeah, well, I wish Chappell was in this. Like, I get it was her first musical guest. She wouldn't usually.
But Chappell only has 2 mammary glands.
You're right. You're right.
I couldn't have her in it.
Yeah, she couldn't be a possum. That doesn't make any sense.
Doesn't. Yeah, what?
No, but I just feel like she is such like a musical theater girl that like it was kind of a missed opportunity to not have her in this. But we'll get to the Chappell later because I'll talk for the rest of the episode about her. So, but I do wish she was in this. I think it would have been really nice for her. She's can't wait for us to her whole life. So.
Yeah. My main point is that this worked very well. I do have to give a good solid shout out because while I did not get my Sunset Boulevard reference, I did get my Hamilton reference out of the best rapper that's ever come out of Saturday Night Live history, and that is Andy Samberg. And as soon as he said, oh yeah, no, wow, thank you. I would not disagree with you on that one. That's a good but like, what was it, like son of a bear and another bear? That's the kind of Hamilton joke I want in 2024.
And
like, I want
he breastfed.
And he breastfed.
So perfect.
Who breastfed?
Baby bear.
The baby bear.
Baby bear.
Okay.
Mammary glands, bringing it full circle. Everybody, all the animals in this episode have been mistreated and taken well, or I don't understand, but I just gotta say that.
And
Also,
honestly,
Andy Samberg in a bear costume, really cute, really
honestly,
adorable.
at the end of that Beppo sketch, I think he was going for some breastfeeding as well. So it all really did come together.
I'm going to leave.
And he has Beppo has how many mammary glands?
Zero. Beppo is a boy.
And that's why. Oh yeah. Well,
Yeah.
He's got nipples, right? All right.
I don't think all nipples have mammary glands.
Okay.
Have you seen Meet the Parents? You know.
Well,
Even though
yes,
anything
because
with
men
nipples.
can get breast cancer, so technically, no. But mammaries are different than breasts.
All right, Sammy, what do you think of bus milk?
I don't know. I pass. No, I'm kidding. I want to keep talking about this. Bus milk. It's interesting. These Mulaney musicals, they've definitely gotten a lot less focused. I would say that is kind of a gripe I have with them, to where it's like, I mean, could you do a whole thing about bus milk? Maybe not. So maybe there's something else we can, focus on. But again, we've done 6 of these at this point. So I will not ever complain, about, if this doesn't live up to Diner Lobster at this point. I think, this is tradition, and I'd like to see it as long as Mulaney continues to want to do it. Like, I want them to force him when he gets into the building to do it. But if he wants to do it, I think they should do it. I did find this one bit of a slow start. I found Circle of Life, again, great song. And the visuals, going back to the mammary glands, great visuals with that. But that song is just, it's kind of slow start. It's not, doesn't, kind of give you that big pop of energy, when the sketch first starts. But then when we get to the Chalamet lookalike competition, I thought that was amazing. Obviously, the RFK Bear as well. Something, we haven't seen a ton of Andy Samberg and John Mulaney on screen together, despite the fact that they have worked together, a ton on SNL over the years and in various movies. So that was great to see. What
was a weird one, Sammy? Sorry, I was gonna say I was looking up if we've ever had Pete Davidson in a sketch with Andy Samberg before, because Andy Samberg's hosted episode was right before Pete joined the cast, and then
was he in Natalie's Rap too?
He was not. They were in a sketch together at the end of Fred Armisen's episode, where that whole cast came together for like a sort of like a musical moment at the end of Fred's episode. So it was like one before, but that is one of those weird combinations that never really got together on SNL.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. That's a crazy stat. I guess I personally, for me with this one, I found the back and forth between Mulaney, Pete, and Dismukes to be the highlight more so than a lot of the musical moments. And I kind of do feel like the reason for that is because this is the first time we've seen this iteration of this sketch since a lot of the great singers and kind of theatery people from that last generation of SNL have left, like Cecily Strong and Kate McKinnon. So I definitely felt the lack of their presence in this sketch. Not having that in there, and also, we just lost Chloe Trost again, probably one of the best, voices in SNL. Would have loved to see a Mulaney musical with her, but overall, again, I'm just happy to see this, come back whenever Mulaney's in the building, as long as he wants to keep doing it.
Yeah, to me, I think what's fascinating about these sketches is that I just don't think they're meant to be funny anymore. Like the references, the very inside references about Mikey Day with his finger on the assault rifle, or the JJ and Longfellow being the bums and stuff. I think those are the moments that they're trying to make funny of, being okay, these are the type of things you would see in the Port Authority that work there. But otherwise, when people are showing up, like Bo and Yang driving the bus and stuff, it's the commentary they're making about the situation of oh yeah, this is the thing you would see there, is good. But the songs themselves themselves, I don't think are meant to be funny. It's more just be like, this is cool and the set looks amazing and it's great that they were able to pull this off in a few days. So that's the problem with these sketches, is that in the first few times they were so astonishing and so different from anything we've ever seen on the show anymore, that or ever, that we were able to look past that. Now that we've seen them do this so many times and know that we can pull it off, we do have to bear with the length of the sketch, knowing that basically most of the time, besides the commentary on, certain references, we're simply just waiting to see what Broadway song they're going to be doing next. And that is amazing for Broadway fans, but for people who, I'm not a Broadway fan, but I just don't know much about it. It doesn't fully click. So similar to the talk about Mulaney, I think the floor for these are so high due to the production value, but the ceiling to me has dropped tremendously compared to the first few. So overall, but I was happy to have it. I wouldn't mind if they, next time Mulaney hosts this, they took a break from these and bring them back down the road one day. Okay, I wanted to talk about this vote for Harvey Epstein sketch. I think we're a little bit shorter on time than because we really went long. So the thing I really want to get into a little bit more, and then we can always circle back to this on the rapid fire, the Harvey Epstein, is Marcelo and Jane on an update. I just want to say, well, we'll basically do some rapid fire, as then we'll head to the stats for the week MVP and talk about next week's show. But Marcelo and Jane, that to me was something that I think we have to talk about here on the desk. Jane Wickline got so much crap for her performance a few weeks ago, which I thought was really fun. The fact that they brought this TikTok stylish thing and put it on the update desk, and she was a very raw performer and people were criticizing her. But I think that the perception that she is timid and shy was exactly what we needed to have a built-in experience with Jane Wickline, for them to then throw her with Marcelo Hernandez, who is the most outgoing cast member they have right now, where they're going to play a couple who you can't believe are together. And we get some amazing moments at the desk.
Damn! Who are you?
And I said, hi, I'm Alyssa.
They played that so well, the difference between the two of them. And it's very rare that I'm absolutely wowed with an update performers. But Marcelo and Jane here crush this and made me such a fan of Jane Wickline. The fact that she was willing to do this, because I do know not couples that I can't believe are together, but couples who one person is the absolute outgoing one and the other one is very shy. So for me, this hit, and I want to just get into it a little bit more than some of the other stuff on the show. So Amanda, your thoughts on Jane and Marcelo together?
This was one of my favorite weekend update moments in a very recent history. It in the same realm of girl you wish you hadn't met at the party. This is first of all, I know this couple. They have since broken up, but this was one of my best friends and her boyfriend. And to the watching Adventure Time at the bar level, that, and when she is truly the most clever person on earth. All of my best compliments come from her. So when the last closing line, that's my friend Katie. This was so well written, so beautifully. It was tight for a weekend update. They didn't waste space. Sorry, Heidi, Reba did not work. But this was exactly the way it should have been. I really loved this. And this was, Jane Wickline is having a really interesting breakout point in for 5 episodes in to get 2 major spots on Weekend Update, one and both of which I see multiple people still talking about after the show. I think it's a great time for this. I really loved this.
Sammy, I have to say, I think 25% of the way through season 50, Jane Wickline is the rookie of the year.
Yeah, 100%. I was actually not a big fan of that first Weekend Update piece. So seeing her on this episode was a nice surprise, because I really love this. I've actually had some trouble really liking what Marcella's been bringing to the desk. I can't quite put my finger on it, but definitely not, of all the cast members. If I see they're about to be on the desk, I don't have the highest expectations per se, but this pairing was absolutely perfect. The juxtaposition between their two energies. These are the like what I think we all really want to see more of, just seeing different types of comedy, different cast members with different vibes just meshing together, especially when you have such a big cast. Sometimes you feel like you get the same sort of combinations of people because, certain people like to work with each other. That is obviously going to happen. So I thought this was great. I think they both were really great. I think Jane, for me, stole the show because, she is doing so much of this with just her face and just a line here or there. She had the harder task, I think, than Marcelo, and I think she absolutely crushed it. So there hasn't been an update character in a while that I've wanted to see again, and this is one that I would absolutely love to see again.
This was great. Rebecca, did Beppo mess with your camera?
I don't know what's going on here. I keep fidgeting, but it doesn't want to look at me anymore. So
that clever ape.
I know. I don't know what's happening, but I loved it. I also feel like, so I could relate because my whole life, everyone has said to me, like, I'm going to end up with someone who doesn't speak because, like, you need to for balance. Like, otherwise, I'm going to get noise complaints from neighbors. Like, I loved it. I thought it was so good. I love Jane's first piece, though. So I think she has a very different, unique humor. And I think SNL is really quick to hire the same types of people. And I think for her, like, she is so different in like such a good way that I love, the same way that like I think Sarah was a really different hire, and we've seen it really, really play out in awesome ways. You see sketches where like that's so Sarah and like that. And I think we're gonna start seeing that even more with Jane. I mean, it's only 5 episodes in and we're talking about her so much, and she's been on Update twice and I loved it. So I thought it was good. And again, we all know this couple that's just like that. And I thought it was really, really funny.
Yeah, it was great and totally relatable for me. I mean, my fiance is more introverted and I'm more extroverted. So for me, like this is more of an extreme situation that we saw with Marcelo and Jane. But like I was like, oh, like I get what they were going for here because there's so many situations where you have a couple like this, and then they're behind the timidness is like sort of like this like a little bit of an attitude. And I love the ending to this where we get the reveal of how they met, where Jane walked up to Marcelo and said this,
did you buy that fake booty on Temu, you dusty bitch?
and like that to me was a great like cap on that line, so, or that segment. So for me, this was one of the better update segments I've seen in a long time. Okay, let's do some rapid fire for anything else from the episode we want to make sure that we cover. So Amanda, anything on your end?
Not really. No. Like, I mean, yeah. Harvey Epstein is running for office. So if you're in New York, go vote for Harvey Epstein, I guess. Go look at his policies. That was very good. It was a very confusing time for my television because I went from one like vote New Jersey ad to that. And then I was like, what is going on? What is real? What is fake? Very confusing.
Yeah, I had no idea watching this that was a real person, but I did find out while we were doing the hot take show, and it was great. Harvey Epstein played into this really well. Like that's exactly what you need to do if you are made fun of on Saturday Night Live. Like, don't take it as anything more than out of love. And Harvey Epstein posted on social media the day after, said, I agree with John Mulaney. Let's not call it Epstein's Island. And then I believe Harvey Epstein was interviewed by a bunch of outlets after. So it's just free press for Harvey Epstein. And I'm glad that they got that one on the show. Sammy, for you, anything on that or anything else to rapid fire?
Yeah, I really like that piece. Definitely just kind of a short and sweet sort of parody sketch that not living in New York, I had no idea this was a real person. So I think they mined that name for everything they could in that. Honestly, I really just thought this was a consistent episode across the board. There was nothing I didn't like, at least like. And to me, like the Little Richard sketch, it was not, the best of these sitcom, sort of retrospective sketches they've done in the past. But for me, I just looked at this as a great Keenan showcase in this 20th year on the show. Being able to bring that type of energy, we don't get a Keenan sketch like that in every episode these days. So I was happy to see that.
Yeah, the only line that I didn't love that sketch, but I did like this line.
You give her mouth?
That's one I will find an opportunity to use at some point. Oh, there you go, Rebecca. You're back. So, Rebecca, any other thing else you want to rapid fire on?
Back. Yeah, I would love to talk about Chappell Roan. There's actually a lot to talk about with Chappell Roan. I'll try and keep it short. She has had, first of all, this year has been absolutely like bonkers for her and a whirlwind of just a career. This is like what people achieve in a career in a single year. And I think that is so awesome to see. And I know she's been so excited to host from a young age. I mean, I was at her album premiere, like small little 100-person thing for Rise and Fall of the Midwest Princess. And like to see her grow is crazy. There's also a lot of just like backstory. Obviously, we saw the Moodang Weekend Update character from Bowen, who, first of all, a big Las Culturistas fan, and he's been hyping up Chappell for years. Like, and for the fact that there was so much backlash from that, people saying it was so wrong and it was so mean to her because she's risen to popularity and she's had a lot of interactions about, oh, like listen to me, but also don't talk to me, don't do this, like diva-esque. It was really good to see her and Bowen at the closing. I'm sure it was pretty intentional because I actually think they have a decently good relationship. Like they were holding hands the whole time and hugging and talking. Also to talk about the fact that there's been Chappell again in her social media presence was talking a lot about the election. And then that got very memed where she was like, obviously I'll vote for Kamala, but like, I don't like her, blah, blah, blah. So there was the internet was going crazy about like holding them backstage apart from each other. And like, there was a lot of just good content there. But as far as her performances goes, like 10 out of 10, like she is theatrical. She always puts on a show. And the fact that in her first song ever, in her dream to perform in SNL, she was able to say, I mean, Amanda, earlier we were talking about the sound department and the acoustics. She was able to say, sing it. First of all, it sounded like there were 1,000 people in the room. Also, their voices were suspiciously good, but also like she felt so comfortable. She was able to say live from New York. Like you could tell this was so special to her. And she did an amazing job. And debuting a new song as a first-time artist on the show, I think like says a lot that she was able to do that really successfully. She's not just a one-time person. Like this is, I think we're going to see her on in the upcoming years if she continues to rise this way. And it was really good to see her and to kind of clear Bowen's name because he got a lot of backlash for something that he's been championing before, like she was even a household name. So I thought it was just all around really good and a good episode for her to be on from an exposure perspective. So
definitely. She was awesome. And I don't remember, another performance where the audience was singing along that way. And I actually asked our friend, we had a couple friends that were at the live show, and I asked them, I said, like, was that the backing vocals because it sounded so good, or was that the audience? And it was the actual audience singing the track during the first song that you heard that was so loud. And there was a great, I know not a lot of people are on Threads anymore, but I saw, it's hard to find right now while we're on air, but I saw Josh Patton, one of the update writers, wrote that he was working on Update Under the Bleachers during Chappell Roan's first performance, and everything was so loud, the audience singing, that he couldn't focus on getting the update jokes in the right order or whatever it was. So for me, I thought that was like such a cool moment probably to be there for that.
There was a big thing. Obviously, we all as like super fans here know that doesn't happen, but Chappell is obviously, first of all, Gen Z, like, and Twitter, and people were excited for her performance, and people on Twitter were like, no, you don't get it. This doesn't happen on the show. Like, this is not a thing that's happening when people are performing. You don't say, sing it, and people just sing it. I don't know, watching her, and like, I followed her career for 2 years now, and like, it's been really like exciting to see. So I was very, very excited that she got her flowers and really knocked it out of the park.
Definitely. All right. Last couple things on this episode. So I didn't talk about it on Saturday. Well, that was my mistake. But they did do a tribute bumper to Terry Garr, who was a 3-time SNL host, season 5, season 9, and season 11. Somebody who I always loved. I loved her appearance on Friends back in the day. But yeah, Terry Garr, awesome, and very sad to see her pass. And hopefully you got a chance, if you're watching along, to either see our coverage of her and everything you need to know, or gone back and watched some of the episodes that she was on the show. So I assume they'll probably be a bumper for Quincy Jones this weekend. Let's talk about MVPs from this episode. Here we go. Here are the stats for season 50, episode 5. John Mulaney, 6 sketches. Andy Samberg, 2 sketches, was in the cold open as Doug saying goodbye. And then again in the musical, we got 1 appearance from Dana Carvey, Pete Davidson, Jim Gaffigan, Kamala Harris, Tim Kaine, Maya Rudolph, Andy Samberg. Chappell Roan performed twice on the show. Sarah Sherman led the cast in sketch appearances this week. 4 for Sarah, 3 for Mikey, Heidi, Ego, Chloe, Bowen, Andrew, James Austin Johnson, Marcello, and Longfellow. So very even distribution. Keenan Oli in 2 and Devin Oli in 1. And then the rookies, Emil and Jane, were in 2 sketches. Ashley Padilla just in that pre-tape at the end of the show. So Amanda, who do you believe are the top 3 MVP vote getters for week number 5?
I'm gonna no, go to Sammy first. I need a second to think about it.
This is like, I was thinking about this earlier. This is so hard because
This
of
is
all
so
the
hard.
cameos. I don't know where it's gonna go. I'm just gonna go John Mulaney, number 1. That's pretty easy. I think Maya probably cracks it, and then I'm gonna go with Longfellow.
All right, Rebecca.
This is so fun right now because there was such an even distribution of like spotlight on the cast, and like when you have such a big cast, this doesn't happen often. So it is really exciting that this is so hard. John Mulaney 1. I actually think Kamala would be number 2. I feel like I want to be right, and I think that's where the voters are going to go. In as far as this poll, and I think also Mikey, not Mikey. Well, Michael. I was gonna say Mikey as in Mikey Longs,
Mikey
Michael
Longs.
Longfellow.
All right, so Mulaney, Kamala, Longfellow. Amanda, what's your vote?
I'm gonna say Mulaney, Maya, and Keenan, because while Keenan only had 2 sketches, Keenan was the de facto lead of 1 sketch and did a great job. I mean, also I just love a Little Richard impression in general.
They just it was so Chloe Simon, where they just like had a good impression from her.
Yeah, they were like, let's
make a
just
whole
build
sketch around it for no reason. Like, it's
truly,
so-
but it's also because Little Richard was just showing up on all those 90s sitcoms for like 1 or 2 episodes randomly all the time. But yeah, so then I'm gonna say Keenan just for that. Because
okay, well, Keenan ended up in 6th in this poll, so did not crack the top 5. But our top 5 here is John Mulaney with 28% of the vote. So you all guessed Mulaney in first place. Kamala Harris comes in 2nd with 13% of the vote. Great appearance from her. No matter how you feel about Kamala as a presidential candidate, you must have loved getting to see her on the show this week, and it was just awesome. Maya Rudolph, 9% of the vote. So Maya and Kamala together. Chappell Roan, Rebecca, comes in 4th here at 8% of the vote.
Forgot about her in the voting process here.
So people were really excited to get a musical guest in there. And then Michael Longfellow, our only cast member that got into the top 5. So this is an episode that will not likely be remembered for cast member contributions, but Michael Longfellow, 7% of the vote there, comes in 5th place. And I'm really happy for him because it's been a while. It's been a long time since we got to say how good Michael Longfellow has been on the show. And I think he's having a really good season in his first season as a repertory player. So very excited to see what else we will get from him coming up. So those are your MVP vote getters for week number 5. All right, let's turn the page to week number 6 in an episode that we were all anticipating. Who the hell is going to host after the election? Is it going to be Chappelle? Is he going to come back? Are they going to go in a different direction? And they do go in a different direction. They are bringing back a host that we covered in our 2nd episode ever here on the Saturday Night Network. Bill Burr is returning to the show. So Bill Burr last hosted in season 46, episode number 2, in a very memorable episode. A lot of really good moments for Bill Burr in an episode that was extremely impacted by COVID. I think he was only in a total of 5 segments for the night. So that's really low for a modern day host. So I'm excited to get to see more of Bill Burr and his specific voice and his commentary on what is going to be happening this week. So Amanda, are you excited for Bill Burr's episode on the weekend?
Yeah. I mean, why not? I think it's weird because when you asked me, literally October 2020 does not exist in my brain. Like I just don't have, I have little to no recollection of any of October of that year, except that I moved into my old apartment. That's all I remember. So I don't remember his first go around. I will go and look, but I will say it's very telling to have a white man with a black wife host after an election with a black woman with a white husband. I'm just gonna say it. I love that for us. But I also just like Bill Burr. I like his comedy in general. I think that it'll be nice to see a change of a post-electoral thing that they've done. And it'll be nice to see him get another shot because it was all, impacted afterwards. So we'll see. Be good.
Sammy, are you excited for the return of Bill Burr?
Yeah, I'm definitely excited. I really still, despite all the controversies, really thought Chappell was going to host. But I'm glad they're switching it up. I do remember enjoying that episode. Again, COVID brain. Can't remember a ton of the specific sketches, but I think the monologue will be great. I think having a stand-up come in and give their perspective after, what will be a monumental, the most important election in our lifetime. I think I'm curious to, see what he has to say about it. And I'm not very familiar with McG, but, always excited to see a new, be introduced to some of these music through SNL. So I'm excited.
Yeah, I do have very fond memories of his Sam Adams pre-tape that we got near the end of the episode. So that was a really good one. If you guys want to go back and look at some of the sketches from there. Rebecca, are you excited for Bill Burr?
Excited for him to host, yes. For this episode, no. I think it's really just a strange choice. Like, I there was not a single part of me that thought they were going to go with Dave Chappelle, because I think a quarter of the cast probably wouldn't be there, and I think this is a good episode to have the cast there and make people feel comfortable in a situation where a lot of people might not be comfortable next Saturday. When I first saw it, I was like, did people say no? Do they not think we're going to get election results by then? Because there's a chance we might not. Like, I think it's really weird. I mean, I'm excited to see him. I think he's good. I think he's a good stand-up, but I think in an episode that will have so many eyes on it, like so many eyes, whether people on the cast and writing staff are excited or they're not, like, I think it would have been safer for them to have someone that's either part of the family, aka was a previous cast member. I think John Mulaney episode would have kind of even made sense to be after someone that everyone's comfortable with in a situation where a lot of people just might be having a hard week, and to bring someone in. I don't know. I don't love this choice for it. Also, to have a musical guest, I mean, really good exposure, I guess, for McGee, or McGee. And
I think it's McGee, yeah.
McGee, God. For like, I don't know. It just like seems a little risky when it's going to be an awkward week no matter what. I feel like having someone comfortable, which would have made sense to have the Mulaney episode be next weekend more than last weekend, and then have Bill Burr. I don't know. Excited to see him, but I also think it's going to affect his performance either way, being that it's just like a weird episode with so many eyes. Like, and his first episode was really weird timing too with COVID. So I was like, I don't know. But
I'm fascinated. I think this one's going to be one of the more interesting episodes ever, potentially, because we don't know if we're going to have election results or not. I think that Bill Burr being outspoken in a good way, I think is a great choice for a host here. I mean, I think Seth Meyers would have been an interesting call. I want to credit Amanda, one of our patrons, who wrote that in the patron Discord. And I was like, oh, yeah, that would have been a good one. Mm-hmm. But regardless, Bill Burr is, I was really feeling like Bill Burr sort of got shafted by hosting at the beginning of 46. Like, anyone, it's an honor to host SNL, but I really wanted to see him come back because I felt like he's really, really strong and we didn't get to see him at his full potential. I am very much hoping that, whatever happens with the election, they'll cover it in the cold open. I'm sure he'll talk about it in the monologue, but I'm really excited to see which sketches we're going to get from Bill Burr. He is a really strong personality, so I can't wait to see how he influences this coming episode, and it'll be a lot of fun. And so many really strong stand-ups. Nate Bargatze, John Mulaney, and Bill Burr all hosting within the first 6 episodes of this season. It's a really interesting look at how the type of hosts, like what will influence this season. Like no alumni so far, 2 traditional actors with Gene Smart and Michael Keaton, 2 musical performers in Ariana Grande and Charlie XCX, and now we get of course Bill Burr coming.
Also though, if the election results are not in by Saturday, it's gonna be Charlie hosting, which is so much funnier.
It's gonna be wild.
Not an American, not American also. Not
Yeah,
a
you'd be
drop
like-
out, an actress, first time host. Like, that would be so crazy. Like,
Yeah,
if
if for
also
some-
think of
you
that.
could.
And also, I will say this: if this Saturday, if they are certifying the election on Saturday, like they did 4 years ago, I will not be viewing Bill Burr because I will not be alive, because New York was wild 4 years ago on the day they certified the election. So I will be shocked if any of the people on set are sober. Just gonna say that.
Yeah, well, whatever happens, it'll be a wild night, and I cannot wait to be there to talk about it. So, of course, we will be there all week long for the Bill Burr and Mickey episode of SNL, however you pronounce it. Daryl, help us out. So, looking forward to that one. Of course, we still have By the Numbers coming up this week, so you're not done with me yet. I'll be back on By the Numbers with Mike Murray on Wednesday night with Andrew Dick joining us as a special guest. So we'll go through everything on a Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, all the stats from this week, and talk about Mulaney's statistics. Mike has all of the data from all of the Mulaney episodes, so it'll be fun to talk through how this one compares to some of the other ones. And then on Thursday, we will have for the patrons exclusively on Patreon, we'll have an SNL sketch breakdown. That poll's out now for patrons, so if you want to go on in there and vote and see that podcast that we post for you guys, patreon.com/the SNL Network. And then on the YouTube channel, Thursday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, come on back, because we got everything you need to know about Saturday Night Live season 16 will be premiering this Thursday night. So I know people have been asking, when is it coming back? We got it for you this week, and I'm very excited to premiere that. So much happening here at the SNN. You need to subscribe to the podcast, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify, so you never miss anything we got going on here. Leave those ratings, reviews, comments, thumbs ups on the video. They always help people find the show. Amanda, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Such a great pleasure to talk to you.
Yeah.
Anything you want to say?
To be here. No, girl, go vote. Go do that. And then get ready, because go vote. And then also go follow me on Twitter and Instagram and TikTok at Loch Ness Manda, like the scary Scottish monster. And then go see Paddington 3 in January. You're welcome. I'll be back to promote it in probably a month, but just remind you. Paddington.
Yeah, looking forward to that. And thanks, Amanda, for all the nipple talk. Appreciate that. Sammy, thanks for joining us as well. Anything you would like to plug?
Wonderful memory,
How do I top that? You guys can find me at that Sammy Kay on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. We'll probably be tweeting about the election, trying to get through it tomorrow. So, definitely follow me there. You can always check me out here on the SNN. I was just on the By the Numbers Michael Keaton episode. So if you haven't watched that yet, check that out. And then, go vote. Just please go vote.
Rebecca, thank you so much for joining us. Such a great pleasure to hear from you. Anything you would like to plug to our listeners?
+1 to the vote. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, I think it's really important that you go to the Saturday Night Network post and follow me through there. And if you were already following me on Twitter, I got hacked. Hopefully,
Speaking of nipples.
hopefully I got hacked. Hopefully you don't think that that's me. But yeah, or if you want a really cool porn account, I guess keep following. But like my current Twitter is different, so go follow me there. And we're barbecue and everything else. But
Why don't you give them your new handle?
You know why? Because I don't know what it is. It is.
Oh, gosh.
Everything was taken. Everything was taken.
This one's super secure. She doesn't even know what the handle is. They'll never hack this
Oh,
one.
it's at Rebecca Norte, because Rebecca Norte is taken. So
Got
at
it.
Rebecca Norte, and I am
All right.
tagged in the post of Saturday Night Network. But unfollow that other account.
Is there a porn star with your same name?
No, they just took over my other account.
Oh, That would be
Mhm.
more
Yeah.
interesting.
They kept the handle though, which is so great if you look me up now.
Wonderful. You'll never forget our handle because it's very easy to remember at the SNL Network. It's a very safe account to follow. So if you want to check everything we got going on there, we have some really fun content. Still got some more Mulaney stuff to post, and we're going to post some other Bill Burr stuff coming up this week. Of course, we're wishing everyone a really great week ahead. Make sure to vote if you haven't yet. That's really important. We definitely encourage that over here, no matter who you're voting for. And I want to thank LateNighter.com as our presenting partner for this amazing conversation we had here tonight. Everybody in the chat for joining us on this Monday. Amanda, Sammy, and Rebecca for being awesome co-pilots of this podcast. So on behalf of everyone here at the Saturday Night Network, my name is Jon Schneider. We will see you next time, everybody. Have a good one.